I'm Grain of Salt. We're at Strategy World 2025 in Orlando, Florida. And who am I with?
Theresa Morrison. I'm with Block Spaces, based out of Tampa.
Great. And so what does Block Spaces do?
We build very interesting infrastructure technology, Bitcoin native, for financial applications.
Can you be a little more specific?
So it's a sort of complex in the sense that it's really designed for banks to implement in their tech stack. But what it'll enable is collateralized lending without moving your Bitcoin, and being able to do high volume contracts. So at the moment you can do UTXO type of lending. This actually raises it up into an L2. It's non-custodial, peer-to-peer, and once that collateral management is open, we're then building derivatives on top of it.
Can you tell me more about the derivatives?
The derivatives. Oh, the love of my life. Derivatives, yes. So initially, we'll be building a Bitcoin forward, which will be delivered. So you can't get that at the moment. You can buy futures, which have a decay in them. This will be buying Bitcoin forward for delivery. And following this, we will do a Bitcoin block space, initially cash settled, because the delivery side of it is challenging, but we were hoping that the technology will be delivered towards the end of this year, early next year, so that you can actually buy block space forward and have it delivered. That's just much more complex.
Much more complex. It sounds awesome. When I first met you yesterday.
That was hard to believe.
Yes.
It's a lifetime ago. I've known you forever.
Yes. I went up and I asked, how did you get started in this? And we were talking about the 1980s. And my question, so you explain what you did. What did you do in the 1980s?
So in the 1980s, I was squeaky clean behind the ears, right out of college, ended up traipsing behind an international banker, and was part of the first globally syndicated interest rate swap.
Right.
First time, which is the beginning of financialization of financial instruments. Prior to that, they didn't exist.
Sure. And were those fixed or variable rates?
Those were fixed to floating or floating to fixed. That was when I was in the States. A year later, I moved to Johannesburg. I joined Investec Merchant Bank. It was pre-IPO. There were 40 of us. The CEO and founders said, you know what? We need to have this in South Africa. You're the only one who knows how to do it. Do it. And we're talking, I'm maybe, 25. I'm like, really? You want me to do this? I'm like, yeah, do this. So I put together a team of 3 different banks, and we actually had to run the beta on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Had never been done before. We had to figure out, are we going to use American options, European options? When are we going to go to close on these? Do we do it at the same time the gilt market does it? Is that going to create disruptions in the markets? So there was a lot of really interesting challenges that we had to think through in actually building a market. And then we had to actually create the market. So we had to find the borrowers, lenders we got the banks lined up.
Right.
So we needed the borrowers, but South Africa's floating to floating. 100% of everything in South Africa is floating. And at the time, there was no such thing as floating to floating.
Right, because when you had said this, I said you did this prior to the 1987 Plaza Accords.
Yes, way before the Plaza Accords.
Way before that. And so for the people who don't know, that was when at the Plaza Hotel in New York City, they decided to basically depeg, is that the right term?
Sure.
Right, and allow floating to floating currencies.
Yes.
Right. And so you did that. And does that prepare you for what you do in your job now?
It absolutely does. So I found the fixed side. It was embedded in an insurance company. They said, bring me as much as you can. We did. Market got going. So I move on. It's just kind of one of those things in the day of your life. I didn't really think much of it. We just did it. It was a project. It was great. The market got going. We hired traders. The market grew. Eventually, I left the Investec Bank and started a wine business, sold that wine business, got back into finance. And in around about 2016, 17, introduced Bitcoin, understood it straight away for a variety of reasons. And about 2 years ago, I met the co-founders at Block Spaces, and they were telling me about this derivative that they wanted to do on Block Space Forward. It was like instantaneous. Within 2 minutes, we knew that I needed to work there and that this was a project that was like incredibly fascinating, incredibly challenging, not only from a technical point of view, but also from creating a market. So just being a Bitcoin enthusiast, I actually was able to pull on something I'd done 30 years ago and be like, wow, the world is rather circular. Fascinating.
I think that's awesome. That truly is an awesome story where you did this in your career. And so you saw we met, we discussed this, and I said, I think you'll like my presentation. And so if you haven't seen it, it'll be posted on mstrtruenorth.com. And my presentation was about variable forward sales, long dated bespoke contracts, and then shorter dated long gamma. I do only naked long calls. I will stay out of the market until the conditions are correct. So I'm the exact opposite of some of the other people that are here. And so I did my presentation. And what was your view of it?
I loved it. I think you did the presentation for maybe 2 people in the audience. It was highly technical. You're going, this is where you do long gamma. This is where you do short gamma. This is how the curve looks, but only if you look at it from this perspective. You have to change it to look at it from an actual trader's perspective where you can see the value. And I lapped it up, and fascinating that you did the graphs using AI. That blows me. That's on my agenda to do next week. I'm going to do that.
That is great. And I will help you with that. And then the crazy part, I showed you that. And then when I was at the party, this Apple engineer just said to me, can you do it in 3D? And I told AI, I said, put graph, gamma, delta, and theta, all on the z-axis, and it actually rendered them as a Greek vol surface, which was just totally interesting to see that. And it looked visually stunning. I think it helped a little bit, but I tried to animate it. That didn't really work. You're
going to have to try that because the 3D image was beautiful. Like it was a piece of art all on its own. And to think that you can actually match the beauty of art with very, very complex finance, you're now beginning to like move into the realm of it's a beautiful mind, right? We need to start to think of these things as living, which they are. They move, they change. Volatility is something that we all look for. It is, as I think quite a few speakers have mentioned, during the course of the World 2025 conference at Strategy, is volatility is where the income is. It's not the risk. It's not the standard deviation. It's understanding when it happens and how to capture it based on your investment strategy or what you're trying to hedge against or for. And it's ensuring that you don't accept risk, which is that permanent loss of capital. Very, very different concepts.
Totally get it. Do you have any questions for me?
Do I have any questions for you? I want one of your hats. Where did you get it?
This one, I just got it bought off the internet. I have lots of hats.
You have lots of hats.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But
all right.
I'd be happy to help you procure a hat.
But I think you need to turn one of your 3Ds into a T-shirt. That would be pretty interesting.
I didn't think about that. You know what? Maybe I can make a limited edition of prints.
Yep.
Of it.
Yep.
Wow.
Don't make it square and then throw the math behind it so that you've got the numbers and the images kind of blending together. I think it'd be pretty stunning.
I'll leave my last point is this, that when I showed that slide up there and people saw the 2D images, they like looked at them and I could tell they were a little bit bewildered. And then I said, these were all generated in AI. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner, the presentation will be posted. These are the AI prompts that I used in order to create it. And when I said that, they looked at it like, oh, thank you for giving us the prompts.
I took my camera out and clicked buttons because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to copy these slides from Grain so that I can see what prompts you used. It is absolutely on my list next week to figure out how you did what you did and how you did it using AI.
I'd be happy to help you.
Fantastic.
Theresa, thank you so much for coming.
Fabulous.
A pleasure.
Lovely to see you here.